Hi everybody, it's Susan from Sunrise Quilt Studio, and today I have another vintage quilt block for you. This one is called Swallows in the Window, and this is a large block. Let me back up so you can see that one. It's 16 inches square, and traditionally this one is made with diamond shapes, and those would be here in the corners. These would all be diamonds, but when I was looking at the original pattern, I realized that this could be easily made with half square triangles, so and flying geese units. So that's how I drafted this pattern, and wanted to show you how to make this one. Okay, so here are all the pieces that I have down here, and I chose 4 different colors plus the background. And this one is a Lori Holt Flea Market fabric. This one is a Riley Blake solid, and these two, the blue and the pink, came from my stash, and I don't remember the designer of those. And then this is a Kona solid white for the background. So the A square, which is going to be the centerpiece, is 8.5 inches square, and then this is what is going to surround it, is this green B piece, and I cut this out 6 5/8 inch square and then cut it in half on the diagonal. So you have to start out with 2 6 5/8 inch squares and cut them on the diagonal. Now for C, you need 4 3-inch squares, and you take 2 of those and you cut them on the diagonal. And then piece D is the same color, but these are 2.5 inches square, and you need 8 of those. Piece E is blue, and you start out with 4 3-inch squares, and then you take 2 of those and you cut those on the diagonal. Piece F is 8 2.5 inch squares. Piece G is for the flying geese. You'll need 8 pieces that are 2.5 by 4.5. H are 4 2.5 inch squares. I is 4 3-inch squares, and you cut those on the diagonal ones so that you have 8 triangles. So we're going to get started by doing the center unit, and so we're going to do the square and a square unit with the A and the B pieces. Okay, so we're going to take the A piece, which is an 8.5 inch square, and then we're going to sew these triangles onto all 4 sides. And to do that, I want to find the center of each triangle and of the square. So I'm just going to fold those in half and finger press, and I'm just going to be careful because this is a bias edge, so it will stretch out of shape pretty easily. So I'm going to sew on 2 opposite triangles first. So I'm going to find the centers of each of these. Now you can press this with an iron, you can finger press it like I'm doing, you can also mark it with a pen, whatever works best for you. And I'm going to try doing the finger press method first, and I'm just going to line up each of the press marks like that, and then I'm going to go ahead and pin. So I'm going to get my pin cushion, and then pin these. And I'm going to pin at both ends as well as the center. Okay, so let me get this one pinned in place. And then we'll sew these, and then press, and then sew these 2 corners, and then sew the triangles onto these 2 sides, is what I'm trying to say. Now I have my 1/4 inch foot on, and I have a switch thread. I ran out of my cone thread. What I usually use is So Fine color 402. I ran out, so I switched over to Aurifil. I had a spool of Aurifil that I bought several years ago, and I bought it for the long arm. I never used it, but this is color 2021. It's a 50 weight thread, and I believe it's 100% cotton. Yes, it's 100% cotton thread. So I'm going to use that. And I'm just being careful because of the bias of this green piece. I'm going to drop my stitch length down to 2.0. Okay, I'm going to swing this around. Okay, so I'm going to press. I'll press these seams open and then we'll sew on the other two. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and press these open, and then we'll have the square and a square done. Okay, so here is the square and a square unit, and there is more than 1/4 inch between the point and the seam here, and I did that on purpose so that it can be accurate. And the next corner pieces, the next pieces that go on will fit better. So I'm going to line up the 45-degree line with the center square and move it out to the 1/4 inch mark at the point right here. So this isn't going to be that much larger, but it may be a little bit, so I want to check that. So this is good. This side is a little bit large, so let me scoot this over, and this will just square everything up for me. Make sure I've got it cut all the way through before I move it. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and turn and do this side and do the same thing. Line up with the 45-degree mark and the corner at the 1/4 inch mark. Now I've got sandpaper dots on here to keep the ruler from sliding, and they're doing its job. You can also just line it up with your trimmed edge too. So I don't have much to trim off of this side either. Just a little sliver there and there. So there we go. Now everything is all squared up, and I'm going to just set this aside and we're going to work on the flying geese units. Okay, so to make the flying geese units, we need the G rectangles, which are here, and we need the D and the F squares. All of these flying geese are going to be the same. Okay, if we look at the sample block, all of the flying geese are the same. They're just kind of rotated around the block. So with the point toward me, the blue will be on the left and the pink will be on the right. So we're going to go this way, and we're going to draw diagonal lines on the backs of each one of these. So we're going to go from corner to corner Okay, so for all of these D squares, and I'm just going to use a mechanical pencil. You can use whatever marking tool you like. I know a lot of people like the friction pens. Some like water-soluble markers, some like air-soluble markers. So just use whatever you like to do. So this pink, I'm going to sew this direction so that it comes to a point like this. So the pink will fold up here like this. The F squares will do just the opposite. I'm going to sew those from here to here, and they will go like this. So we will have this look like that. So that's what we're after. So I'm going to draw my diagonal lines on all of these and then start sewing these flying geese units. Okay, so all of the flying geese units are done now, and now I need to work on the half square triangles, and that will be the C and the E squares. So that's the C squares, here are the E squares. And then on the back side of one of these I need to draw a diagonal line. So I'm just going to use the blue and draw a diagonal line. On each one of those. Let me do this one. I can't see this one very well, so I'm going to do it again. That's better. Okay, so now I need to make half square triangles. So I'm going to match them up with a pink, right sides together. Going to sew 1/4 inch away from both sides of that drawn line, and then I will cut it on that drawn line. So we'll go back to the sewing machine and do a little bit more sewing. And you can pin these together if you want. I'm just going to let them go without pins right now. Do the second pair. them apart, and then I'm going to cut right on that drawn line. And you, of course, you can use your rotary cutter and ruler if you want to. Okay, now I need to press open. So I'm going to lay these with the blue side up. And just press towards the blue. Okay, so now I have dog ears. So I'm going to clip those off so that they won't create any more bulk, because there's going to be a lot of points coming together in this area, and I need to get rid of as much bulk as I can. So the next thing I need to do is I need to trim this down to a 2.5 inch square. So I'm going to line up the diagonal line on my ruler with the seam line here and go down to the 2.5 inch mark and make sure everything is all squared up. And then just trim, and there's just going to be a little bit extra here. So there we go. And now I need to take the triangles and we're going to place them like here and here, so right on the half square triangle. So I need to make 4 of these. So I'm going to stack all of my blue triangles together and all of my pink triangles together and all of my half square triangles together, so everything is in the right order. And then I will start sewing, and I'll just do one side at a time, press, and then sew the other side. So I am going to do the blue triangle onto the pink. We'll just sew that on. And I am starting with the area that forms the right angle and running that under the machine first. And what this is also doing, it's helping hold down the seam here that's pressed towards the blue. Okay, so now I have them all chain pieced together, and this is what I have at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and press all of these open, and then we'll add the pink to this side. So first thing I'm going to do is cut these apart, and then I'll press. So just press as it was sewn, and then press open. Okay, so those are all lined up, and now I'm going to add the pink to the blue side. So all of these edges out here are bias. So I'm sewing a straight grain to a straight grain, but this is going to be bias. So I just need to be careful not to stretch that out. But now I've got them all in order, so I'm just going to start by sewing this triangle on. And you can pin these if you want. And you notice there are dog ears. You can cut them now or you can cut them after you get the pink triangle sewn on, whichever way you want to do it. And grab hold of my thread. There we go. Okay, so these are ready to be pressed. So we'll just press them as they're sewn and then press out. So there we have the triangle unit. So I'm going to lay that to the side and just press the other 3. Okay, so these are done and our flying geese. So let's lay these out and I'll show you what we need to do next. So here are the triangle units we just finished. The flying geese are going to go here. So I'm going to stack 4 on each side. And then in here is going to go the H square, and then the L triangles are going to go over here. So I'm going to put 4 on this side and 4 on this side. So we're just making a larger triangle. Okay, so here we have, it's just a larger triangle. So H squares need to go on to one of these segments, and then the triangles need to go on to the other side of the flying geese. I'm going to sew the H squares to these 4 flying geese units, and then I will add these triangles to this side of the flying geese units. Then I will come over here and do these here, these triangles with this flying geese unit. So then I will have 3 sections, and then we will sew these together, and then we'll sew this onto there. So first thing I got to do is sew squares onto these flying geese. So I'll adjust the camera and we'll go ahead and start that. So I'm just going to chain piece all of these together. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and cut these apart. So this is what we have, and what I need to do now is to sew these triangles on to the blue side of the flying geese unit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that before I press. And I'm going to double check and make sure I'm getting this right. Yeah, it's going to go this way. So just watch your placement. Just watch that diagram and make sure you're sewing that triangle on the right direction. So this is what you'll have if you look at it this way or this way. Okay, I'm going to press these seams out. So this is what we have at this point. These edges will go all in a line like this. So I have dog ears here I need to trim off. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that now. So now I need to sew these triangles to these flying geese. So they're going to go this way. Okay, so now we can press these out. So just press it flat and press it out. And once again, I'm going to trim off dog ears. Okay, so let's lay things out again and double check. You can see how the diagonal is going along. So we need to sew these two sections together. So I'm going to pull these apart. So we need to sew these two sections together. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this over, and there aren't any seams to match, but we do have a point that needs to match up to that seam. So I'm just going to pull that back and like here and see if that point is going to line up with the seam here, and just do my best to keep it there. I'm not going to do any marking or anything. I'm just going to go ahead and pin this, and then I'll go ahead and sew this seam. And then I'm going to do my best not to blunt off the tip of that flying geese unit. Looks like I need to put my pin cushion back on. So let me show you what this first one looks like, and then I'll finish sewing the other three. So we have this. Now we're gonna after we get it all sewn together, we'll do some trimming if we need to. So right now this is what we have. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other three pieces. Okay, so now I'm ready to attach these two sections together. So get them all sewn together, and then we can move on to adding them onto the main block. First thing I got to do is I do have some seams to match, so I'm just going to nest those seams together and pin them. And right here I'm not really matching seams, but this point is going to meet at this seam, so I'm just taking a peek there to see if that is kind of in alignment, and I'm going to go ahead and pin. And I'm not going to worry about how much is hanging over this side. You don't need to worry about that right now. So I'm going to go ahead, line everything up, and sew these now. Now I do have a point here, but I can see by the way it's lined up that I shouldn't cut that off. It should be okay. So Okay. Let's see what we've got. Okay. And I'm happy with the way that looks. The point is lined up, it's not cut off, and the seam is lined up here, so I'm good with that. So 3 more to go. So once again, just going to press as it's sewn, and then I'm going to press away from the smaller piece. So I'm going to press towards the center. Okay, so this is one of the corners. So the pieces now are done, and I want to do some more trimming so that everything is the size that it needs to be. And I'm going to judge from where these points are, here and here and here, and line up, go through the center here, and then find the 1/4 inch mark. It's just little bitty bits of this. Okay, so here is the square and a square part of the block, and we need to sew these on to the sides, just like that. So I'm going to match this point with this one here. So I'm going to take my straight pin and go right through the top of the point there, and then into the point here. Line everything up, make sure my pin is straight, and then just repin it like that. Now this is all a stretchy edge because it's all on the bias, so I'm gonna just be careful with that. And get everything lined up. Here we go. And then I'm going to sew with this side up because I can see all 3 of my points here. Okay, so I've got these 2 sides sewn on. So there we go, and I'm going to press and then sew the 2 opposite sides. Okay, with this block and all of the seams that it has, I'm going to press this open. Now you could press it to one side if you want. I'm going to start by, I'm going to try and press it open, or press it to one side. And this seems to be working okay. Now these seams are already pressed open because they weren't wanting to go to one side, so like this one is fighting it a little bit too. Okay, now I'm going to trim all the dog ears off. And here we go. It's too big to fit in the frame, so I'm going to put this up on the design wall and then we can take a closer look at it. Okay, there's the finished block. I think it turned out pretty well. This one does take a little bit more time because of the number of pieces in it. There's quite a bit of work in the lower corners, or in the outer corners I should say, and it just takes a little time, but you're looking at flying geese units and half square triangles, and then you've got other triangles that you need to add in there. So this block isn't perfect. I can see a couple places where there's a few little glitches in it, but overall I think it turned out pretty well. The sample block that I did, I had to redo the outer triangles on it because I used different measurements and it did not work out quite right, so I wound up redoing all of those, and that made it fit together better. So anyway, this is Swallows in the Window, and this is an Eveline Foland block. So this is from the early 1930s, I believe. Well, that's it for the Swallows in the Window block, and I hope you enjoyed this one. It was different, and it does take a little bit more time, but I think it's a pretty block, and I think you could use it with any fabrics that you want. You don't have to use just 1930s reproduction fabrics on this block. So I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please give the video a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and click the notification bell so you'll be notified when the next video comes up. And in the meantime, I hope you're all staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. For more quilting ideas, click on the video links, and to keep up with my latest projects, click on the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon.